Our parsha begins with Vayihi Beshalach Paro Asam. That moment that we've been waiting for. Paro sends out the nation. He sends out Bnei Yisrael after all of these years of slavery. And there are two questions that stand out. Vayihi, Chazal tells us, is a language of tsar. There being some sort of difficulty. What's the problem? What's the difficulty? And why does it say Beshalach Paro Asam? That Paro sent out the nation. What was the reality? Paro was forced into it. It wasn't that he wanted to send out the people. It was HaKadosh Baruch Hu took them out. Give the credit to Hashem. Why does the Torah write it in such a way? So it's a beautiful approach from Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky with, I think, a very, very fundamental lesson. And Rabbi Yaakov Galinsky Zatzal says that the questions really answer each other. Yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu certainly took them out. But if you asked people what happened, what they perceived, what they saw, what would the Egyptian newspaper headline read the next day? It would say, Paro sends the Jews out of Egypt. It certainly would not say that God took them out. And that's the Vayihi, that's the Tsar, is that we don't always, and not everybody appreciates, that what happens in the world is in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we perceive it in the simplest way in terms of, well, what did we experience in how it looks? How is that perceived? He quotes from the Mir Mashkiach, Rav Yerucham Levavitz Zatzal, who explained that suggested that the greatest Musar Sefer that a person could ever look at is in fact the newspaper. Why the newspaper? He says, because we know that Rosh Hashanah Yikasevu, and that Rosh Hashanah, our decree is written of Yom Tzom Kippur Yechasimon, and it's sealed on Yom Kippur, and it's everybody, it's Kol Ba'ei Olam. Everybody goes in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in judgment. So when we look at the newspaper and it's months later and we see that Rahman al-Islam, a person drowned, Miva Mayim, there was a terrible, terrible fire like there was recently. Miva Eish. These things, if we understand them, we look at deeply, yes, there might be a cause that we can identify right now. But the primary cause is that there was a decree from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That on Rosh Hashanah it was determined that this was going to happen. And that we can sometimes try and see through the derech hateva, the way that it appears, and try to see the Yad Hashem. And that's a very different way of looking at the world, of appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hashkacha, His divine providence, His impact on everything that it is that happens that we do in our lives. That's the Vayihi, is the tsar of the way that it's perceived, the Beshalach Paro, that so many people, Jews and non-Jews, might not have understood it, might not have appreciated. Yes, at that moment, maybe the Jews did, but the world did not necessarily appreciate. Beshalach Paro Esa'am, that it wasn't Paro who sent them out. It was HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. I was thinking this because one of the parts of our training for the 10K that I just ran was our coach required that we check off on our chart different things as we're going through each run. And one of them was at the beginning of the run, we have to daven for our own hatzlacha, for our success. And it seems silly at first. Why are we davening for our hatzlacha every single run? But the truth is that it gives you a different perspective. Because sometimes we take it for granted that I can walk, that I can run, that I can see, that I can hear, that I have whatever it is that I have. And we don't realize that it comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we pause, even when we're doing something mundane, and we reflect on the fact that I'm not going to succeed at whatever it is unless it is the will of Hashem. Yes, I have to put in my shtabos. I have to put in my effort. But the ultimate success that we're going to have is only if HaKadosh Baruch Hu grants us that hatzlacha. That is this idea of seeing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs everything, whatever it is that happens in our lives. And then when we see the Jews coming out, even if it was Paro who said, get out of here, we know that it was Hashem who's calling the shots. When we see what happens in the world around us, we understand that it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu who's running the world, even if it doesn't seem that way in the most natural way. And that's the lesson that we walk away with. That's the way we understand, or need to understand, everything that's going on in our lives. We turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and tefillah, Hashem, please help us. Be matzliach. Please help us in whatever it is that we do. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu hopefully sees that dedication, that our willingness to recognize His hand, then in that merit, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will hopefully shower more bracha upon us, and all of our tefillos will be mekuyam.